So right before I went to see Spider-Man: Far From Home, I dropped a video titled "Conservatives Should Reconsider the Blind Support for Military and Law Enforcement." Talked about some
Yo,
things over the course of like 15 minutes or so. And what I'm going to do now is respond to some of the comments. I knew it was a nuke. I said that when I actually dropped the video, like in the video. So I'm going to respond to some of the comments and kind of just go from there. And that's what we're going to do for this video. I don't want to call it a part two, but we're just going to go through some of the comments and I'm just going to respond to some of the points being made by those who are either being critical or maybe they have other questions or not familiar with the position or something like that. So let's see if we can find one. I was reading one right before. All right, this guy. Let's see here. So the military and the police are completely different entities. I've never said they weren't. Take Marines for instance. Marines form their entire reality around honor. Well, see now he's going off oaths and stuff like that. That doesn't negate anything that I said. Now, also, he's saying that you are correct about the police, but when the police come to exterminate you, it will be the military men standing in between you and them. First of all, I don't believe that. I believe that if anything, they would send the military folk first if they're going to just start attacking random citizens like that. Nonetheless, that doesn't address any of my points. Regardless, he's just saying, "Hey, the police are bad, but not the military or anything like that," which doesn't even address what I was saying. You know, my whole thing was to lump them in as regards to saying that they are, the same or anything like that. Um, let's see. There was another one. Here we go. I watched your video. This is a good one. I watched your video. I respect what you have to say in it, but there's a few things you avoided. So first of all, he's operating on this under this fallacious point that there was other things that that I didn't include in the video, therefore I avoided them purposely. It's only 16 minutes. I can go on this topic for ages. As a service member and a government worker, literally negates nothing when people mention that. You're right about law enforcement, military being agents of the state, of the government. I know that. You focus on the symptom, not the cause. It's the voters who put in the politicians who create laws which require law enforcement and military to carry out. Yes, that in itself is correct. I didn't avoid that though. Um, but nonetheless, the point is that those politicians and those voters and their wishes are completely null and void. They're completely irrelevant. It's meaningless. So as long as the teeth of the state aren't actually there to enforce it. So, like the point I made in the video, Bernie Sanders, if he wants to implement some new tax law, and I tell them to fuck off, I'm not giving them a dime. It's not going to be Bernie Sanders that's going to come knocking on my door, or Bernie Sanders coming to garnish my money or anything like that. It will be law enforcement, and if I choose to resist, we already know what's going to happen there. Um, you can say any voter is an agent of government. Not necessarily. Not everybody works for the government, and not every voter has the um, any sort of power in that regards because they're not the teeth of the state. Nonetheless, you paint a broad brush on conservatives, law enforcement, and military. Um, how broad are we talking? Because the point is that there are conservatives. Never said all conservatives. I said, excuse me. The point is that there are conservatives that have blind support for military folk as well as police officers. Those thin blue line types. Thank you for your service. All those types tend to be conservatives. Certainly in comparison to the other dominant ideology, excuse me, which is like mainstream leftism, progressivism, whatever you want to call it. They have absolutely no problem criticizing the military. They have no problem criticizing law enforcement officers. And I think that's the catch of this all because one entity demonizes them but needs them to enforce their nonsensical laws. And the other side, the conservative side, they um, will be the first ones to say, come and take it, uh, don't tread on me, and all that, not extending it to the logical conclusion that the people that they have the blind support for are going to be those that take it. Anyway, but yeah, maybe they have family who serve. Again, negates nothing. I have family who serve. I have my grandfather is dead because of war. Um, Maybe someone from law enforcement or military saved a person's life. Again, that none of this is changing anything of what I said. Right? I'm not questioning, more so if they support them, and everybody has their reasoning for supporting them. I'm specifically referencing people that blindly support them, as in give them inherent respect just because of the position that they feel. Also, no one in law enforcement military is looking for worship of blind. Again, completely irrelevant, and that's also false. There's people in the comments right now who say things like that, who oh, you should respect me. I'm protecting you and your freedom. So again, that is objectively not true. I've never met anybody who wanted it. You saying that's two different things, buddy. No one in law enforcement. Then you say I've never met anybody. Those are two completely different things. Most of the time, we try to shy away from it. Yada yada. Just watch a veteran in an hour of war. You will see someone coming back, but all right, whatever. You don't consider the human element. Actually, that's everything that I'm considering. The whole point is that people would have a overall different, certainly I would at least, different view on police and military officers if they actually were acting in the name of serving and protecting the individuals that they claim they are serving and protecting. As it stands right now, they are mere agents of the state that are just enforcing the wishes and the laws of the politicians, the state itself. So that's the point. The human element is that I'm not trying to rob them of the agency and rid them of some sort of responsibility, which is, ironically enough, this is what a lot of the blind supporters tend to do. They're just doing their job. Stuff like that, right? And even you almost did that at the beginning of your comment, saying that it's the voters' fault. Like, you know what I mean? So that's ridding them of their agency. I'm not the one doing it. I'm saying I know you're a human. I know you're a human. And I think that it's wrongful that you have sworn these oaths, yet you have no problem enforcing unjust laws that have absolutely no victim, thus ruining other people's lives simply because you have a badge. You think every law enforcement and military officer is going to carry out laws from the politicians? Well, effectively, that's what they do anyway. But that's neither here nor there. Whether we say every law enforcement officer, most law enforcement officers, yada yada, people are go to jail all the time for victimless crimes and whatnot. And yes, they carry out. I mean, my military member, we know what happens overseas, and we know that a lot of people don't sign off for that shit. So effectively, they are doing that already. There's really no case that you can't find that isn't a result of that. So I think that's a weird sort of question to ask. I mean, you just said no and answered it for yourself, so it must have been a rhetorical question. Number 4, you mentioned a few cases where law enforcement didn't serve and protect. You have a valid point, as there are many cases where law enforcement failed, whether it was by individual orders given. Most of the time, though, law enforcement do try to serve and again, it sounds good. There are many cases where law enforcement have sacrificed their lives to serve and protect. Neither here nor there. That was a good comment. That was a good comment to kind of go through. This is not a real issue. You don't have the balls to fight the enemies of the United States Constitution, foreign and domestic. You're a comic book personality. Actually stand up for the innocent. Then I'll listen. See, so again, that goes back to the whole arrogant and the egotistical, narcissistic type of shit. Is more so what it is, because this guy is basically trying to diminish my position simply because I'm not like I talk about comic books. First of all, this guy doesn't know anything about me, right? But just because I was critical of the institution that is the state and their agents, he took that actually stand up for the like. Never mind the verifiable stuff of me being shot, me being shot, slid. I've been jaded. I'm from the gutter. I'm from the streets. You know what I mean? So I also take issue with stuff like that when people just automatically assume that, oh, because you didn't do this, you didn't decide to become an agent of the state, you haven't experienced something. You know what I mean? Like that's not only it's disrespectful. more so than anything, it's just disrespectful because I'm not pretending, even with the law enforcement, I'm not pretending like I know exactly what it is they experience. You know what I mean? I just know what the result what the result is, and I know what they do, and that's actually what I'm referring to. I'm not trying to say that they don't do something or do something that they don't. You know what I mean? Like that's not what I'm saying. That's not my claim. I'm specifically referencing them being agents of the state. You're just saying that hey, you're a comic book personality and yada yada. Like what the fuck? You know what I mean? But that's the type of shit that comes from this when we criticize these individuals. It's dishonest, but it does nothing but amplify my actual point. Um, have the balls to fight the enemies of the United. I never claimed that was a goal of mine, right? I didn't swear any oath to a piece of paper that I never signed. You know what I mean? I've never done that. But again, he's saying that okay, you do this, therefore you didn't do that, therefore you have an invalid opinion. It's disrespectful. Anarchist, aka a child. I'm a grown ass man. Just creates a power vacuum. Nothing good comes from a power vacuum. Not an argument. Um, One corrupt officer in your department that goes unchecked means your entire. I'm trying to find some more dissenters. All right, this is a long comment. Let's see what's going on with this. I agree that we should not blindly. He says that he agrees and disagrees. The problem with you and others on the left and the right get wrong. The one problem you and others on the left and the right get wrong about the police is that they're not a monolith organization. Um, I'm not sure that's the argument. The point is that they are the teeth of the state, which they are. Most police are ran at I think you're confused by what certainly I and a lot of other libertarians when they use state, like we're using state as like the territorial monopoly. We're not, there's different states. Like the federal government is a state, the state government is a state, the local government is a state. Several police departments have stated they would not enforce gun confiscation throughout the country and even in California and New York, even if they were made into law. Um, Sounds good. You're saying that you believe that. All I know is there's a lot of gun control laws that exist right now, and according to you conservatives, they're unconstitutional. Yet we're still in the position that we have. So there's that. The military will not support this as well. Again, I would. How many times do I have to be on Twitter, right? And I see these former vets. Hell, there's video. There's actually a video of this. They got a bunch of video. The leftists got a bunch of video footage of. It was like some sort of ad, if you will. Basically, a bunch of former, uh, like military folks or veterans, are saying things like, I served in the military. These types of guns should not be on the streets," type of shit. So I don't believe that. But that's why we have the Second Amendment. When these state actors try and violate our constitutional rights, then that's why we have the Second Amendment. Yeah, and again, somebody, for example, in Baltimore, I talked about this, and the Ann Arundel police officers, the two police officers that shot and killed a man for enforcing the new gun control law and he was trying to defend himself. Ironically enough, NRA, all of them, they didn't really say shit about this, right? You think that's the proof that hey, this is a tyrannical government, right? It's like yeah, whatever. I was pulled over for having a headlight out at 1 a.m. I was let off with a warning. I was pulled over at 12 a.m. having expired tags and got a ticket. I was given 3 months to pay and fix the problem. I also could have paid in installments. I was a college student making minimum wage, got it taken care of. The reason people respect the military and law enforcement inherently is because the job is inherently dangerous. Again, that's y'all's business. There's a lot of dangerous jobs out there. That doesn't mean that, at least I'm not gonna respect you just because you feel the position. Certainly one that I didn't tell you to do. People that fix my roof are they're in a dangerous position. They might fall off the goddamn house. But I thank them for their service because I actually asked for them to do that. You know what I mean? So and I have respect. I don't respect all roof makers, right? You know what I mean? I don't know them like that. I don't just give inherent respect for a roof roof maker, a person that repairs roofs. I don't do that. You know what I mean? Because just because they feel that position because it's dangerous does not mean that they inherently deserve that sort of respect. This is a position. It's a job that they took upon themselves to fill out. I didn't ask for them to do it. But if I ask for a specific organization, business person to come fix my shit and he fixes it, and we exchange money, or I exchange, it's more so I give him the money, he gave me the service. It is what it is. But that position itself does not deserve, it doesn't inherit this respect. They are the ones who will rush to any situation that everyone is running away from. 9/11. That's why I agree that they should be held accountable and are not perfect. If a service or police officer violates the law, they should be prosecuted to the fullest extent. Like again, the law is not a sense of morality, so I don't really even care about that when it comes to the law enforcement officers. The law is the law, regardless of how stupid you think it is, and that's the problem right there. And that's generally sort of the nonsensical response that you get from, and we're going to go through this next comment here in a little bit, in which you have people's lives that get ruined, and the response, instead of okay, that shouldn't have happened, is you should have just followed the law. And then when you criticize a cop for enforcing it, well, they're just doing the job, as if that just rids them of their agency. So yes, if the law's stupid and the law enforcement officer enforces it, they're fucked up for doing it. Again, doesn't matter if it's some other victimless crime and they smoking a plant or some shit, or they're in possession of a plant, or or more so trying to enforce a new gun control law. Let's go through this one right here. You don't want your life ruined by a police stop, then don't break the law. Again, it's not an argument, right? It's just say law, arbitrary law, no matter if it's a victim or not, follow it. And if you don't follow it, then that's on you. Like that's the type of bullshit that I'm talking about, right? And it completely disregards the fact that how many laws are on the book. First of all, you're probably breaking one right now. I'm probably breaking one right now doing this video. But how many laws are on the books that have absolutely no victim to it? There's no actual crime. It's just the state said don't do it. There's no victim in it, right? They didn't hurt anybody. No persons or property were hurt in the crime that they're committing. Whether it be fucking, I don't know, collecting a bucket or goddamn rainwater. You know what I mean? And your response, instead of like, well, that is crazy that somebody would ruin somebody's life over something like that. Your response is, don't break the law. That's amazing. Poor blacks and predators and criminals. What does blacks have? Did this guy just let it be known of his high key racism? Yes, he did. Wow. Because I didn't say anything about my race in this video. I didn't even allude to it. It was completely irrelevant to the point that I made. I'm never going to be on their side. Oh, he's saying he's never going to be. All right, we're not reading that. That's just he's just a racist asshole. And it's crazy. You have guys saying shit like this, and you wonder why these sorts of people, poor blacks, right, are very critical of the police officers. When you got people like this saying he would never take the side of a poor black person, and then he says he would rather be a racist than, I guess he's trying to say, comrade or whatever, comrade. That's amazing. And if the military, law enforcement are protecting our freedom, the entire government, and that's the part that I wanted to get to, because somebody said that I can't remember the comment that I read, and I wanted to address that, and that's going to be the thing that I end with. Like, you would think that all of the criminal politicians that pass these laws, right? If the state agents, the teeth of the state, be it in law enforcement officers, state, federal, doesn't matter, local, doesn't matter, or the military, were actually protecting people's freedoms, and they actually stood to uphold your, beloved Constitution, your magic piece of paper that either got you the government that you have right now or was completely powerless to stop it, right? But if they were actually serving, protecting the individuals, they'd be marching their asses in D.C. right now and throwing them motherfuckers up out of there. But they don't. They just follow their orders. Do y'all not see? And I get it. I get that people have an emotional attachment to this subject matter. I completely understand that. I'm gonna go back to me real quick. I completely understand that a lot of you have emotional connection to this, but don't let your emotional connection to it and the fact that you hold these people in high regard, don't pretend that's an argument against the position or even an argument against the actual reality of the situation. Because the reality of the situation is that we have this bloated government that we have right now. And the reason why this shit is as it exists, the people that are front line and making this happen, it's not the voters. It's not even the politicians. Do they hold some sort of responsibility for being asshats? Absolutely. But those guys are meaningless if the teeth of the state aren't enforcing their laws. Every election cycle, you got these groups of people, Republicans, Democrats, bitching and moaning, arguing with each other, which is literally saying that you guys don't consent to half the shit that exists. Conservatives love throwing out the idea that these laws are unconstitutional. Yet they exist, and yet they're being enforced by the same people that I'm talking about. It's them that are going to enforce that. That's not up for dispute. That's the reality. So I have a hard time believing that these guys are protecting freedoms. I have a hard time believing that these guys are even have what's in the individuals within this geographical area's best interest. When again, if you're conceding that, well, they're not the problem, the other folks are, why aren't they marching in DC and getting them the fuck up out of there? They're not. They're protecting their buildings. Anytime they're having an argument, who do you think is protecting the buildings? When they're voting on bills, who do you think is protecting these buildings? As they're writing laws that they will then in turn enforce. And again, it doesn't matter if you can figure out, because the libertarian minarchists would have the same position that I have, and they believe that there should be, security, court systems that are facilitated by the state. I don't. But your inability to see that is not an argument against what the reality of the situation is right now. Just because you can't figure out, well, what would happen if they didn't do, like, the state has a territorial monopoly on use of force, violence, and ultimate decision making. There is no competition. So to sit here and be like, again, these people have claimed monopoly on this entire geographical area. They have a monopoly on the law. If something happens, you can't take that shit in your own hands. Competing firms can't take that shit in their own hands because there are no competing firms because they have a monopoly on it. That's how it works. So it's nonsensical to sit up here and be like, well, call a crackhead or some shit like that, right? First of all, I ain't had no reason to ever call the cops. But to say something like that when they have monopolized the law, it's the equivalent of a mafia member coming to your business, extorting you out of your money, saying they'll pay for you gotta give them a cut. You gotta give them a cut of your money and they'll secure your facility, right? They give you the necessary security, and that's a competing gang or something, or a gang member wants to come and do the same or steal your shit, and then that mafia member that's extorting you, again, something that you didn't want, actually protects you from it, and then you're expecting that person, that the store owner, to be like, thank you, thank you, bro. You've extorted the individuals within it. What type of shit is that? Certainly from the free market standpoint, even when it comes to, like, anarcho-capitalists, and I know y'all don't really understand that. Even when it comes to certainly on that side of things, we want competing firms. If these people are as noble as you say they are, righteous as you say they are, they would exist in a free society. They can be a competing security firm for an insurance agency. I don't know. The problem, right, what we have right now is that it's monopolized law. But nonetheless, even the minarchist is going to admit that right now, this bloated ass American government that is killing civilians abroad, that is fucking people's lives over here, the people that are front lines in doing that and enforcing those laws, enforcing those war efforts, are the military men and the police and the cops and the law enforcement. That's all I'm saying. And therefore, I don't give them inherent respect. And the whole point of that video that I made was to simply say you should probably reconsider the blind support, because the people that are going to come and take it, the people that are going to tread on you, are going to be the same individuals that you have blind support for. And if you don't have blind support, if your support isn't blind, I'm not fucking talking about you, bro.